Yeah, press the button, see what happens.
We're live.
Okay. Call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda and order of business, and I personally don't have any additions or deletions. Does anybody else? Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. It's gonna go bad from here. It's gonna start to go good. There's no public input? Minutes to the previous meeting, December the 15th, errors or omissions?
I'll move we approve them.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Not 9 o'clock yet. Leslie Taylor?
He's there.
Are you ready, or are you waiting for other people?
No, I'm ready, you're ready.
I'm ready,
Let's go.
especially since it appears to be good news.
We'll see, I hope.
Well, I read it, it looked pretty good.
Did you read the last page?
Oh,
Yes.
well, they may need a little something.
It could be worse news than it's gonna be.
Yeah, increased
I
operation.
was gonna read it all.
Yeah,
Can you load my PowerPoint?
Oh, that's not it?
No, that's just an annual report that has been circulated back last year, and I shared it as just more information in case some of the counselors didn't get it. I brought some freebies. Pass around if you like. Like
Andy or what? No,
Look at me, Andy.
We had
It's 9 o'clock in the
chocolates last
morning.
week.
But I'll leave these on the desk. And then you guys can pass them around after.
now you know she wants something.
Always.
Have we got it yet?
Getting there. I see you part of it. Awesome.
Is that it?
Just ready to pop it up as a presentation. Okay, so I think everybody around the table probably knows who I am, so I don't need to introduce myself. I've been chair of the Community Rules Board, how long, Chad? It's been a long time. Not the full 15 years, but a long time. And so anyway, this is a bit of a monumental year for us, as you can see. The operation has been rolling around town, around the village, around the district for 15 years. And we've certainly come a long way from when we started in 2007 with that old green Forest Heights bus. Some of you were around then, you remember that? We scratched the Falcons logo off and plastered on the magnetic little logo. And so our logo hasn't changed, but this would be the third iteration of it because we did a 10-year celebration. Pens. And now we're doing.
You just had some old ones.
No, we handed them out, and so now we're updating you at 15. Listen, we don't throw anything away. We make the best of every dollar. So anyway, we're 15 years old, which says a lot because we were that little service that was told when we were starting that we couldn't, and looks like we did, at least for now. So in 15 years, we've grown. So this is our fleet, and I'm sure you recognize some of the vehicles around town. You probably see the smaller vehicles on the 103 because we started out with replacing the Falcons bus by the big bus and doing some almost like a fixed route, pre-booked kind of service in the various far reaches of the municipality. And then we started to get requests to go to medical appointments outside the area. And so what we saw was it wasn't the need, yes, within the municipality and our pay what you can service, which is how we launched and why we were told we couldn't, and we did, was to go further afield, and taking that big bus for one person really didn't seem. So we've sort of really changed up the various modes of vehicles that we have, or types of vehicles we have in our fleet. The 2 minivans are wheelchair accessible. The bus obviously is wheelchair accessible, and then the car that you see in the front is just a regular car, because we don't get a lot of requests for wheelchair accessibility, or we get a lot of requests for folks who have some limited mobility, but getting into a minivan or a higher van, which is what we can convert for wheelchair accessibility, is difficult. So the car is a little easier for folks, it's lower, and so anyway, that's our fleet. We started out as a group of community partners and we've remained true to that. So we weren't an original board, put a call out there for interested volunteers within the community. We do have community
You
members
guys
on the
don't have a
board.
four-wheel drive truck or anything like that?
I'm not at the moment.
Every once in a while I need to drive a can.
Well, see, that we'll talk about under our charter service.
Yes.
So this is a list of partners. Over the years, it has grown some. When we did our business sustainability plan 5 years ago, we identified some new organizations that were logical fits around our board table. And then we've got a couple of organizations that are listed as partners because they're funding partners, which would be United Way and the province of Nova Scotia. So we're just finishing off. In fact, we saw the final draft yesterday of our updated 5-year business sustainability plan. And again, this was a component that we've built in, is the community has changed again in 5 years. And so there are a couple more logical partners that we look to have around our board table to be able to better our service. So yeah, next slide. So we've got exciting news to come, and we're growing in a lot of ways. Growth is good, growth is challenging. In terms of vehicles, we've grown to a fleet of 4. We have official word, but I haven't signed a contract yet, so take that for what it is. But we applied back in April to the Federal Rural Infrastructure Fund to increase our fleet by 2 wheelchair accessible vehicles, and I'm awaiting the contract for that. So that's fully paid for. Between the feds and the province, they are purchasing 2 more vehicles to go in our fleet, which is amazing.
Yes.
That's a big,
So
we need more staff and all that.
you see where we're going with growing, right? So that's fantastic because we certainly, our bus is probably 12, 13 years old. Still lots of life left in it, but yet, we know that it's coming to an end. One of our vans, the Transit, is our older van, and still a little bit of life left in that. But we have a capital campaign. We get some provincial funding on a regular basis for that capital campaign, but we have to come up with the rest of those funds on our own. And so good news is I'm not asking for money for a vehicle today. There you go.
So we keep all 6?
Yeah, for now, for sure. Yeah, and we'll get to that. So the provincial funding that's available is for replacement vehicles, and we have to maintain a ratio of accessible to non-accessible and capacity and all that sort of stuff. So there's a strategy that we have to follow with our capital campaign and how we replace our fleet. But the federal grant was not for replacement vehicles. It was actually to increase capacity for rural Nova Scotia. So with growing vehicles means we're growing in staff. And so we started with a part-time coordinator and a volunteer, not a volunteer, but I think he worked 4 hours and we paid him, but 1 driver. We're currently at 5 drivers and a full-time coordinator / dispatcher. When we bring 2 more vehicles into our fleet, obviously we're going to need 2 more drivers, if not more. So the other way we're growing is in kilometers traveled. And that's up a lot. Like that's really, really increasing. So we cover the municipality of the district. Any resident who lives within it is able to call and access the service, but we're really big geographically. So we're not like some of the service areas where we have an urban core and then it's very few people out around. Like we're fully covered and it's large. You know that. Our funding is based partially on population. So that's the other thing. We have a sparse population for the biggest or one of the largest geographic areas that we serve. And we provide service to the entire district. So just to give you an idea, in 2021-22, which I know was COVID, but we still, like the people we provide service to, it's not to get out on a Friday night or they need transportation to something that is important in their lives. So we didn't really see a downturn in our ridership during the COVID time, because they still needed to get to their medical appointments, their legal appointments, education, whatever that was. Yeah. So during that time, our average was 115 trips a month. The first 6 months of this fiscal year, our average was 161 trips a month. Okay. Just this past January, our average was 206 trips. Wow. And so that's a lot, right? Like when you think about it. So that speaks to why we need to increase our fleet, because we just are not able to meet demand with four vehicles right now. We've got some reasons or some ideas as to why that is, and so it's no longer a double-edged sword, it's probably a triple-edged sword or a five-edged sword. But we can go to the next slide. So with that, there are definitely some challenges. One of them is driver recruitment. So we are licensed by the UARB, which means our drivers have to have a Class 4 license. And we work with drivers to get a Class 4 license. There's a bit of a process involved in that, and an investment in that. We've been versed in the past where we've been able to help people attain their Class 4 licenses, but because of the way we're funded and the model that we provide, we're not able to pay competitive salaries. And so we had one gentleman, we got him a Class 4 license, and after a month, he said, okay, we'll see you later. I need to work for Dexter's now because he has a license. So that's a downside, right? There's a bit of an issue with insurance that we're coming up against, and it seems to be a sector issue. So right now, we're able to bring them on, train them, they're fully certified as Class 4s, and then, like we can have them moving our fleet around. However, we've been experiencing, and again, sector-wide, that the insurance industry is looking at, they need 3 years minimum driving experience with that class of license. Yeah. And how do you recruit somebody with the wages that are not competitive, right? Like for that, you can't, because, so that's a bit of a challenge. And we're still working within it. We have an increased demand. And I mean, the ridership that I have just told you about can show you how, and I don't expect that's going to go down. I expect it's going to go up. We've got a little bit of a problem at the moment with public expectations of our service. And so we're working really hard to sort of pull that back. So during COVID, the folks that used our vehicles are still using them. They were clients before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. But during COVID, we had to operate based on some best practice standards or safety standards that were endorsed by public health. And so because our vehicles were smaller, we were having to do a lot of trips with one person in the vehicle. Obviously, that drives up our cost of operations, right? And so now that we're no longer in COVID, we're not required to do that. So we can get back to the way that we had originally planned to offer our pay what you can service, which is multiple folks in the vehicle, and then being as efficient and traveling the least amount of kilometers to serve the most people that we can at one time. So we're working on that. And with anything, when something gets implemented and then you have to go back to the way it was, people are resistant to change, but we're getting there. But all of that adds up to rising costs, right? which is the challenge.
Gas is way up too.
Well, and it's not just rising costs in variable, it's fixed as well. So like insurance, that insurance issue, we will probably have to look to go to facilities insurance, which will double our insurance on an annual basis. Insurance premiums, even with what we have gone up. Being able to be competitive with wages. So we've always paid higher than minimum wage. We've never been able to compete with the school board or Dexter's, but with the changes in minimum wage, that impacts us. So those are all fixed rates that are going up. And then you talk about the variables. Fuel. I don't even know what the fuel bill is on a monthly basis anymore. And it doesn't matter if we're running our diesel bus or we're running our gasoline car, right? And then repairs. And another thing that we're having a real issue with is access to the supplies for repairs, like to parts. Like we're not immune to what's happening in the car industry. We're also not immune to the increase in prices for vehicles. So even in April, when we put in that grant, we built in a 20% contingency fund. Hoping 20% is going to cover it, but a year later it may not. And then when do you even get the vehicle? Right, so it's so right now they're asking for large down payments to be able to hold the vehicle. Well, not-for-profits have a bit of a problem with that. We've so far we're going to be lucky, I think, and we'll manage to secure them. But certainly lots of challenges to come. So yeah, we'll go to the next slide. However, with all that being said, our goal is that we want to continue being a little service that could, right? So we want to continue being that pay what you can within the municipal district for as long as we can. So if we were to flip to a paid service, like a fare-based service, we probably wouldn't generate any more revenue. And we probably would eliminate a lot of the folks who do take our service from being able to access it. And when we came together as that original list of partners, we wanted to remove the barriers to transportation in the area. So we, pre-COVID, I think the around $6 was the average donation, or the pay what you can for a trip. It's a little low right now, and that's to be expected. It's winter and inflation is high and people are choosing food, heat, and transportation. Well, I'd rather them eat and be warm than drop a little extra coin in our donation box to get to where they need to go at this point. But our goal is to be able to see that go back up over time, hopefully. We'll see. So yeah, right now I think for January, our average donation is around $3, but you expect that, right? But we'd like to see in the next 5 years, it go back up to 6 and maybe get as high as 8. We'll see how that goes. And that's a very, you know, it's like crystal ball gazing. It's hard to say what folks are gonna be able to afford. So, next slide. This is why I'm here. You guessed it, pretty good. So the municipality has always come on as a funding partner. And so last year, it was $10,000 in our increased sustainability plan. We have sort of looked at all of the funding partners. Some have increased their contributions through in-kind contributions and some have been financial. And so we're hoping that the municipality is able to increase the contribution to $11,500 this year. So that's a $1,500 increase. I mean, we could use 15, but we have always had the approach that we don't ask for any more than we need to break even. So that's my ask, and that's why I'm here. And I'll answer any questions too about the service.
Well, we haven't set this year's budget yet.
That's why I'm at committee of the whole today. And it was time for an update too. I mean, we didn't come for an update really during COVID. There was the brief presentation over Zoom, but that truly is not an update. And we appreciate the fact that you've been a partner for 15 years.
Anybody questions?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm well aware of your service, but I think that is a small ask compared to what you do. I know we've been supporting you and it's very reasonable. I would support that.
Yeah.
We're really glad that we have this service. I know people that use it and they couldn't afford to have a car
No.
and they need to get to places, and I think it's a great service.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, this year and next is gonna be a real telling year as to where things are gonna land after COVID, right? Like in demand and inflation. And I mean, you may see me back here again next year. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Anyone else? Derek?
Do we refer this to budget or just make a motion?
No, you'd have to refer to budget.
Yeah.
I think it has support, so I don't see any issue.
Gina?
Certainly. So just to waste everybody's time, I guess, probably, I'm similar to Sharon. There's just absolutely 100% support. I think it's a phenomenal service. We have bragging rights. I remember early days of Senior Safety Partnership, and a lot of the municipal units, a good number of the municipal units were looking to this municipality and just looking to this example. And this was just casual discussion around the table. And I think probably at the mayors and wardens, I would suspect some of those other regional tables, this is a phenomenal service. Love Community Wheels. Similar to Sharon, Councillor Church, know a good number of people who use this service, absolutely. I would like to see the increased use get back to our weekly outreach, New Ross, Blandford, Western, those areas, because I know that the ridership has gone down in New Ross. I can speak to that. I'm sad when I don't see the bus each way when I'm traveling on Thursday, because typically this is the day that they're in New Ross, and I would meet the bus each way, actually. But I used the service myself. I thought, why not? I need to speak firsthand testimonial, and I can't say enough about the service and the quality of ridership there and the affordability piece. The last thing I'll say or make note of is we in New Ross certainly have been working on a housing project for a good number of years. And part of those first just days and first discussions, we are absolutely linking into the service of our health center and Community Wheels in terms of regional points of pride, in terms of what we can offer and have in place for anyone who might be looking at residing within the housing project.
Thank you for being here. No, thank you. And so in terms of the regional pieces, some of our communities look different now, right? After COVID, COVID was 3 years really of folks. And so the community can change a lot in 3 years. People have passed away, people have moved, there are lots of people who are still not comfortable getting out in public. And so I suspect you will see those regional pieces come back. They may not look exactly like they did before, but we've always been, one of the ways that we're able to continue at that pay what you can is we're responsive to community needs. And so if we need to change up our service to match the community need at any time, we can do that. So, and back to the pride piece, I will let you know, we are of 23 services in the province, we are the only one that offers a pay what you can. And so our average donation per trip was $6. The new fare, Lunenburg County Wheels in Bridgewater, so Seniors Wheels has expanded.
Yes.
And they're now Lunenburg County Wheels, and they've started charging a fare in Bridgewater. And it's $5 round trip, right? So that's $2.50. So their fare is $2.50, and our average donation is $3. And that's always been our sort of pushback to the province when they say, how can we continue being a pay what you can service? And we're doing it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any issue with support for Community Wheels here. I will say that, you know, we don't have a public transportation system.
And that would cost us a lot.
And, you know, if you look at our neighbors in HRM, I think they subsidize their ridership to the order of like $7 per rider approximately. And I think Bridgewater on the other side subsidizes theirs in the order of, I think, around $6 per rider. So if you think about the number of riders we reach with this service, or you reach with that service, this is it's pretty economical. In fact, I would suggest that at some point this council may wish to turn its mind to somehow how we can strategically work with Community Wheels to try to, you know, increase the reach and awareness in our community for this service. You know, because I personally would be interested in supporting, and maybe even to a greater extent if we could try to make it
Even more accessible.
yes, more accessible.
And we would welcome those conversations. For sure.
No, we're fortunate to have you, yes, and that we met in down public transportation, like you said. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd rather
Absolutely.
support this, quite frankly.
And you always have to, I mean, any public transit, whether it's community transport or fixed route transit, it has to be subsidized at some rate,
Yeah, some-
right? Yeah, so I appreciate this comment.
Just interest. So page, so there's obviously like a box on the, you put your money in. So,
An envelope, you pass it to an envelope. You pay what you
Okay,
can,
is
you
that-
can,
yeah.
you can.
so I don't know, have you had any inquiries or I don't know if it would be feasible, but some kind of electronic payment for that, or have you thought about that? Just-
People, well, here's the thing, people provide us their contributions in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
So we have a donation box on our bus, we have
Okay.
people who hand us an envelope, we have family members who send us a check at the end of the month. We're a registered charity that triggers a tax
Tax.
receipt. We have folks who do auto deposit, like we work with people any way we can. And lots of people that use our service on a regular basis within the pay what you can area. They just can't afford to, and that's okay. Two things I didn't mention. One is we do have a charter license, right? There's a charter designation on our license. And that was intended to be able to help subsidize the service. So you can charter us to take you to your camp. However,
I've used your service to take kids like from Forest Heights out to the landfill and things like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that would fall, yeah, for sure. But one of the things with our increased expenses right now is we have to apply back to the UARB to have that rate increased. So we're not really promoting the charter piece until we do that, or else we're gonna lose money. That's the opposite of what we had planned. When it comes to traveling outside the area, we still do offer a little bit of an element of pay what you can to the various medical regions. So Halifax, Lunenburg, Bridgewater, Kentville. And we also have a small pot of fare assistance funding to help cover those suggested fares, we'll say, for folks, because, you know, if they need to get to a hospital in Kentville, I don't know what Kentville is, it's probably, Kentville is like a suggested fare of $50, but we're able to draw down the fare assistance so that the people living in this municipality, it's still, you know, pay what you can. Yeah, and so if they can only put $5 in, well, we've got a fare assistance pot that we draw down to be able to expand that pay what you can for those reasons. If you want to go though, and you're not willing to be flexible and you want it to be more of your private taxi service, well, that's where we offer you our charter service. Yeah, so.
Great service.
I just want to thank Leslie for your presentation, and I'm quite aware of the program, as you know, and very supportive of it from the AHT point of view and the
Mhm.
councils, and I'm amazed you've kept our costs down, we have this long and haven't been here before, because I think we've only paid you 10,000 since its inception, haven't we, for the first time?
No, first we started at 5 and then we went to
Five.
like 7, and so our board, and Chad can attest to this, we never ask for more than we need to break even.
Yeah.
So, because we recognize that there's a lot of need in the community, right? And we're not about, but probably 10 the last few years.
That's who it is.
Yeah.
Well, I think you see the support around the table, the program's great, and the community loves it, so thank you again, and I can't say you're gonna give it, I'm pretty confident.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
seems like you.
I'm feeling pretty confident. Awesome.
Anyway, thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much for your time.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. Haven't seen you in a while. Take care.
Thanks for the vendor.
Oh, yeah, we're not gonna take them, because I have new ones coming with a 15-year loan.
Yeah.
Sue, are you waiting for anybody else?
No, we're here.
Okay, you want to come? I know it's a little early, but.
No, we're great.
Morning.
Things are moving along, yes?
They are, and that's what we're here to talk about. It's funny, when I was walking here, I came up from Water Street up Tremont, which is the longest consistent hill in the village. So I arrived out of breath, and it seemed like a metaphor for this project. But anyway, you know, good morning, warden, counselors, staff. We are thrilled to be here today. You know me, I'm Susan Crocker. I'm presently vice chair of the board of the Chester Playhouse, and my colleague Kirk McCullough, who you have also met before. Kirk is a board member, but has been our steadfast construction lead for the Chester Playhouse restoration and rebuild. And you know, we are really thrilled to be here today. Our goals are to update you on the project and to also share our excitement about both the opportunity and the impact that's coming as we move towards reopening. We want everyone to shift their sights there once you understand the building is actually happening. Great. First of all, just the time before. What was the time before? It's so long ago. You know, the time before we realized we had to do a restoration to save this deteriorating building. The time before COVID landed at the start of that construction project, that restoration project, and impacted supply chains and so forth. The time before the fire that broke our hearts, and so on. So next slide, please. You know, this has been a story about adapting and resilience. We talk about wanting to raise children who are that way. As adults, we've had to learn to be that way. You know, to adapt to all of those circumstances, and then post-fire to really understand, to come to terms with the implications of that in terms of building code. What were we building? We kept calling it the restoration, but in fact, it's a total rebuild. And you know, what did it mean to move through insurance, to sort out approval to rebuild, and to come to terms with the actual cost of that? So that's really been our focus. Noting in here that, you know, the important reinvention post-fire was to rally and become Playhouse Without Walls. And I think, you know, the decision at that time was, if we disappeared, it could be the end. You know, we had to keep the organizational muscle and capacity functioning. We had to continue to support the community with arts and culture. We had to continue to engage artists, particularly during such a difficult period. So it's incredible. When you look at last year, I think like, 41 performances, in different venues. Just the other day at the Legion, we all live at the Legion now. Just the other day at the Legion, we had a completely full house, so it's really been the right way to manage through this project.
Yeah, you kept it alive.
That's right, and more. So now I'm gonna hand it over to Kirk, who will talk about the nuts and bolts of this.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Morning, everyone. Morning. Schedule, I hate to start with schedule, because that's, as a developer or former developer, retired now. Schedule and budget are two really critical things for tenants that need to move in at a certain date and so on. And so on this one here, the schedule's been a really great challenge to us. And, but all in all, we will complete the project in about 15 months, which is, we think it's pretty good given the circumstances. It's a big project. Initially, the first one was a renovation. So we had most of the infrastructure there. We were improving the mechanical, we were putting new seats in, we were doing a lot of renovations, but it was renovations. It was about $1.5 million job. This is a rebuild. After the fire, the whole inside was gutted. It didn't look that bad from the street, but once you were inside the building, it wasn't much left, and we had to take down everything else that was left. It was easier going back to the shell, start over again. The only framing that really remained was some on the ground floor in front of the building that wasn't touched by the fire. Everything else was gone. So it's a major project. It's also, we are working with local trades and builders and wherever possible. So RKO Seal came in and put this steel roof assembly on, but other than that, virtually everything else is done by our local trades and so on.
Ivan Fitch still working on it?
Absolutely. And,
Logan.
well, Ivan's at Cape Breton today.
How is he?
Ski-dooing, so good for him, but he needs a break.
Oh, I think my son is with him.
Welcome to Chester.
And
I know he is actually.
so they've been great to work with. Ivan and Logan have just been tremendous and, just there and come up with great ideas all the time. As usually happens in a project, the architect draws something and then the builder says, well, if we could do this, we could do it better, or we could do it less costly and so on. So we're very fortunate in that, and in that regard. The schedule is driven in part by the air handling unit. That's the big main air conditioning unit that sits outside the building on a frame, a steel frame that was on the east side of the building. We ordered that last July after all the mechanical was done, and we were told that delivery would be the end of May of this year. So when they tell you that far in advance, who knows how accurate that is? So we're trying to chase that down a little more accurately. And it would have been longer had we said it's fabricated in Oklahoma, and if we sent it on to, as some additions we wanted to put on, it would have added another 12 weeks onto it. So we're having to come here and any modifications we will do here on site. So it's a major scheduling challenge. And at the end of it, of course, we have the testing and commissioning and so on must take place. And because we had a fire and we've retained RJ Bartlett Engineering as our fire protection consultants, I'll come to that in a minute. But they will have to go through and test all the fire protection systems as well as all the other commissioning of the mechanical system, which has to be installed and commissioned after it goes in. So it's a very sophisticated building, which I'll talk about in a minute. Next slide. Work in progress. As you walk down the street, you don't see a lot happening. The picture on the right, upper right, is probably taken the other day, and it will look the same tomorrow. The windows are coming from Coltech. Kevin Pelly, the local connections, is donating the windows and doors for us. Thank you, Kevin. The building on the picture on the upper left is the skin of the building, all of which has been done except for the back northwest corner, which is, that's the only part that's not done. And so the outside, the roof is going on now, the shingles are going on now. The action is really on the inside. The lower left picture shows inside the steel roof assembly. So In the middle of the building, over the auditorium portion, there's a steel roof structure. And on the floor of the attic is a 4 to 6 inches of concrete. And that is part of the structure that is there. That you see a panel there in the middle, or that's what gets electrical panels and so on there. We can't use that for storage. That is just entirely empty space. And from a fire protection point of view, we can't put anything flammable in there. So it's a nice spot, but it's what it is. So what's happening now, all the framing is virtually done except for the stage, which and the Tri-City March, which we're waiting for some structural details. And so we have to put all the framing in, then all the wiring and plumbing, and then which has to be inspected, and then the building is divided into 3 components with 2-hour fire separations between each one. That means there's 3 sheets of drywall on virtually every wall. And the parts that are 2-hour rating are 1-hour rating, which still is 3 sheets of drywall. So we're going to monopolize the market of drywall pretty well. But so we put the framing up, then the drywall goes to one side, and every cavity in the building, every cavity everywhere has to be filled with rock wool insulation, which is non-combustible. And then we put the drywall on the other side. So what we're doing now, all that goes on, that takes a long time to do, and but that's what's happening. So it doesn't look like lots going on, but there is a lot going on, and they're making great progress.
Should be easy to eat.
It will be. It will be, and you know, the pictures show the mechanical. We have brand new mechanicals system and air conditioning and so on, which is state of the art, and all the other pictures show the wiring, which is places just a massive wiring. $500,000 worth of wiring in the building, which is a lot for a little building. So our costs our budget is $4.2 million, which is substantially more than it was before, $1.5 million to $4.2 million. And why? I'll come to the main drivers in a minute, but there's a breakdown of the budget. The big portion being construction, which includes a lot of the fire safety measures, which I'll mention in a minute. The theater technology, which is new projection, $100-something thousand. Sound, special acoustic treatment, we have streaming, lighting, all LED lighting, both for house lighting and for theater lighting, and a lighting grid that we'll be able to lower by mechanically, so we don't have people high up off the ground with fall arrest issues. And of course, we have 2 accessible lifts in, and maybe another one on the way. And so we're being as accessible as we can be for the whole building. And all new seating and so on, which has been, we've had for, well, it's been in storage with our suppliers for a year, all brand new seating, which is waiting to go in. And the other part of it, our costs is, well, our architect, Cindy Merrick is our architect, and Wilson Fitt is doing our project management, all pro bono. So if we had to pay for that, that would be big bucks as well. So we're very fortunate in that regard. The next slide, please. The cost drivers in this are, as I said before, it's a rebuild rather than a renovation. So it's about $700 per square foot, which sounds like an awful lot of money, but that's pretty well where it would be for this kind of building. So we're thinking we're getting excellent value for money. It really is an upgrade all building systems, well, it's really all new building systems, but they are state of the art as the expression goes. And a lot of money for that. Theatrical, we talked about $600,000 of theatrical technology in there that will substantially improve the performance perception or experience for our audience. And additional fire protection, because we are non-sprinkler and because we are wood or we are combustible construction and we are what's called assembly occupancy, we are supposed to be sprinklered and we are supposed to be non-combustible construction, either one of which we can do. So in order to overcome that, we've retained fireman engineering, as I said, fire protection specialists who have put forward a very extensive program of what's called alternative compliance solution that will ensure that the safety of the occupants of the building would be the same as if we did have sprinklers and we were combustible construction. therefore 3 sheets of drywall and alarms, everything's alarms. The stage will have a fire curtain, so they have a rapid heat rise and the stage, the fire curtain comes automatically down. That's $125,000. There are hatches above the stage, so the rapid heat rise, the hatches open and vent. So they're on the roof, you can see them from your office, there's one of them on your side. So it's altogether, that's about $1.2 million that we are spending that is directly or indirectly related to what we have to do because we are
Non-sprinkler.
non-sprinkler and we are combustible construction both. And in general, over the past couple of years, we've seen a significant increase in costs. And of course, we're subject to that like everybody else. But I feel we're getting really excellent value for money and we have a great team, so we're very fortunate in that regard. Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, thank you, Kirk. So how are we funding this? The best way to look at this as chapter 1 and chapter 2. So chapter 1 was the restoration, which, was looking like $1,250,000. There was a bit left to finish as we came into the sort of final weeks. And you can see the funding breakdown there. So post-fire, the fire happens, it's a new day. And the only carry forward is really contained within that insurance settlement amount, okay? So we knew that we needed, at that point, we estimated $3 million. And with these projects, you have to come up with an estimate and go and secure your funding, but you don't actually know your costs until you go to market and place orders. And especially when this building is so highly engineered. So you last saw us when we had the discussions that led to your generous contribution of $200,000 to that post-fire budget. Since then, we've had to go out for another round of funding in effect. And our other government partners have been incredibly generous and come to the table with supplements to bring in an additional $1.25 million. So we now have the funding in place to complete this project without compromising on essential things. I think this will be probably the biggest investment ever in the village of Chester, or in the region potentially. And I want you to know it's going to be amazing. So we can have the next slide. We're building what we're calling really a community asset for everyone. Yes, it is going to be a 180-seat performing arts center with year-round programming. Only our imagination and the ability to offer what audiences and the community wants will restrict us. The whole design approach, even though we're within the same envelope, what you'll experience is this sort of lobby bar and hosting space that are really part of the theater experience that really open up possibilities. The second floor has been completely reimagined as a multi-purpose meeting and hosting room. It also is the access point to the patron balcony on the second level, but it's more than that. You recall there was the big bar sort of in the middle of it before. Well, that's gone. So we went, hold on, how do you really want to use this space? So we'll have storage for meeting furniture. We'll be able to set it up as a lounge, as a meeting room, use it as a classroom space. And the fact that Kirk has had to zone off every section of the building means that places can be used privately, without sound traveling, which provides a lot of advantage. This will be a venue, yes, for the Playhouse's own programming, but also for other not-for-profit users, for commercial users, and for what we call informal users. So those just might be community-driven, patron-driven, is it available to us, for this purpose? With expanded programming, even more skilled professionals will be involved in and employed, as will, students. This has always been a place that's attracted volunteers, and even through Playhouse Without Walls, we've had many volunteers supporting our performances. This will continue to be a great contributor to this volunteer culture that is this region. And importantly, a hospitality partner for the restaurant and accommodation sectors. Just anecdote, I ran into Dean Leyland the other day, and he's going, okay, what's the planned opening? My staff who have been around a while sat me down the other day and said, I've got to be ready for the 5:30 rush. And he's going, I don't even know what that is, but it sounds like money. you know, and,
Well, a lot of people do go to like the
Yeah.
tavern
And
prior
everywhere.
to or after the event.
you know, and the discussions we're having, it's this idea of, you know, because how do you get people back from 3 years of Netflix? You know, how do you get them back from all this? It has to be special or easy, accessible, and occasion. So the idea of you know, the idea of Tanner's and a show, the idea of this and a show. So, you know, it's our executive director's intention to work really broadly with the community to think in those terms and make it that easy for everyone. Next page, please. You know, inclusivity, accessibility, you know, the previous presentation was about that very much. And, you know, the Playhouse, we're currently refining our strategy so that for the next 3 years, we'll continue to move in the direction we want to. And that's all about plugging into community ideas and interests. You know, we have in the last few years gone, we think, much further in terms of inclusive programming. 50% of our events last year featured BIPOC performers. And that was important to us, that was intentional. Youth, we've been able to do a bit with youth in the last couple of years, but it's been difficult. This year, we'll do sort of a soft launch, but we are going to be designing and really thinking with the community about what is the place of the Playhouse in engaging with youth in concert with the school system and alongside the school system. So you will see a lot more there. Acadia First Nation, we've had some tremendous successes in really building a path forward with them. You know, this Playhouse is rising on their land. We will be having a smudging ceremony next week to really begin that sort of cleansing and reconnection. And we're doing some other things that will be very visible in the Playhouse that convey that welcome and that partnership, but in our programming as well. And we've had events that have brought elders at no cost to the Playhouse, and it's been incredibly well received, and our commitment is high. And then on accessibility, as Kirk mentioned, we're going from one lift in the lobby to the lift in the lobby, a lift up to the stage, so anyone with mobility issues will be able to act on or be on our stage. To we also, it is our intention, we don't know if it'll be at opening, but very soon, to have a stair lift up to the second floor, and we've put accessible washrooms everywhere. So very, very exciting. We also have been negotiating and working with property owners behind the building to provide parking and accessibility from the rear, which allows us to achieve a lot of things in terms of artists into the green room and loading in shows and so forth. So that we're just incredibly excited about that. And then final slide, please. So this has been a partnership with you. You know, we came to you first, and you were with us then. You demonstrated from the beginning that you understood the place of arts and culture in this community, both in terms of humanity, but also in terms of the economy. So thank you for that initial vote of support, because we leveraged that in our engagement with all other funders, public and private. And thanks for staying with us. This is the Playhouse for the region. You know, it's something we want everyone to feel ownership of and pride in. We are planning our grand opening in August. We're just working out the date now, even though there may be some soft opening events ahead of that. That's when we intend to have a very public event on the street, and you know, with tours and other things, and really approach the programming there so that it is very much a festival and a celebration for all. And we note this here because we are determined to make sure that this is not, that this is a threshold anyone is comfortable crossing, either to host their event, to attend an event, to influence programming, etc. So we know that that's about making sure that we remain affordable for all. That's an essential value. And be that in rental agreements for other not-for-profit or community users, for affordable tickets, for you know, members of our community who face financial constraints. So we hope to work with you as we understand the costs and the run rate for the building. We'll continue our dialogue with you on how we ensure that affordability. So we think that's a good focus for our relationship. But we've had some fun thinking about things that could happen here, like, you know, the next election, candidates in municipal office can, you know, speak from this stage to community gatherings. I mean, it could be, you know, anything if you think about it. So from entertainment to civic affairs to, you know, arts education and more. This is going to be a great playhouse and your playhouse. So any questions, please?
I have none, just thank you. I mean, it was a big job when you started just to rebuild it, and then now to rebuild it completely all over again. It's been a lot of work.
Yeah, it has. None of us know what we're going to do next year.
Yeah.
Yes, Derek.
I have a question. Soft launch or soft opening? Just explain what you mean by that.
So it means that, so first of all, Andrew Chandler, our amazing executive director, and his team have programs booked, they have artists booked in July, for example. Those artists, he has also booked the Legion for those nights in case there's any issues. But then there's also some things that are sort of more informal on the books, so that different types of acts, some of them amateur, semi-amateur, can come in and help us test the space as we work with sound, work with lighting. So as we say, it's this whole new technological environment. So we're going to engage community artists in helping us with that. So soft means it's your flexible, you're testing, you know, you don't call it really open until you have, you know,
Everything
consider grand
working.
opening
Seats
event.
are in.
Yeah, the seats will go in. There's a few things that will signal, you know, seats are kind of, you know, close to the last thing in, I would say, and then Kirk's air conditioning, air handling unit. That'll be a celebration on the street. And then,
You'll notice when we put that in.
yeah, that's because the crane has to come back.
We haven't shut down, do we?
No, not this time, but thank you.
And then we will, sort of other last things, we'll be doing some important visual things in the space connected with our First Nations partners that are, you know, help symbolize the reopening and so forth. So you'll all be informed and invited, and things will be on your schedule very quickly.
Anybody else, any questions?
I'd just like to say thanks for the presentation. I remember you taking me through when the renovation was being done and how excited you were, and showed us what was going on upstairs and talked about the sound, the advancement in the sound and what you were gonna do. And like a week later, and I'm thinking, man, these guys are must be devastated. And
It's okay, I mean,
you're like the Phoenix, you more than one actually, but
well,
I just like to commend you and all the volunteers. I mean, with Sid
yeah,
and with project management, I mean, the cost could have been a lot more.
yeah,
A lot more.
no, thank you very much. It's been that care by Kirk and the whole construction team and the engagement. I mean, Andrew, our executive director, who arrived, got COVID, and then we burnt down his building. And he had to reinvent and reimagine, and it's really making connections to the community, listening, finding his way around, and it's just been amazing to sort of watch all that happen. So it's sort of like you know, here's the silver lining. The silver lining is when we open, we'll be ready for this building. The other silver lining is we were not building this building.
No, this will be a
We were
better
doing-
building than that.
We were doing a restoration, you know, and parts of the building, there were parts of the building we were not touching. We were simply cleaning and putting paint on because we just believed we couldn't possibly afford to do any better than that. They're all new. And it's exciting. So, you know,
You still need to do more public fundraising.
no. And that was and thank you to our incredible Danielle and her colleagues in government. And that's what we said, we just do not want to crowd out other important not-for-profit organizations in the community. You know, we rely so much on donors to support annual operating costs, and they've been incredibly generous. Our operating campaign this past year exceeded our objectives. So people have stayed with us. They understand, you know, that's it. You know, our programming revenues, even in this COVID time, are covering our direct programming costs. But all of the overhead, everything else is a function of donations and grants, you know, and that's the deal. So people seem to understand it, that it's a public-private partnership. But anyway, we're so thrilled with the support of our partners. Now, the pressure on us is we have to spend madly in the next couple of months.
Some of the money is from the federal government, money has to be spent by
Timeframe,
Yeah,
by the end of March, because it's money that wasn't used up in
Yeah.
other
Yes.
opportunities, so we are busy spending, which we're good at. She's good at raising money, and I'm really good at
Spending money. It's a good partnership. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Tina, you had
Yeah.
some
Yes, so,
Comments?
yeah, thank you, yes, so comments, but it's been said, they've been said, my comments, but I just can't help myself. Thank you, you are a phenomenal, just wonderful wonder, really, in terms of the entire region and beyond the municipality of Chester. So in terms of building awareness in terms of what's important, arts, culture, and bringing people into our community who are then discovering our community for other reasons, and it's all just it is wonderful. Just to make a couple specific points, Andrew Chandler, I just so admire. He has done a great job, and he is making those outreach overtures to the far-reaching areas of our communities. And I am very thankful for the Playhouse Without Walls opportunities in New Ross, you know, making use of the 40s Community Center and bringing people there. I think that might have been the last time I maybe saw you at one of those. Yes, I think face-to-face, that is. The additional revenues that you required, that on its own is just such a success, because I know that's so unheard of, really, in terms of provincial and federal departments recognizing, because it's hard to make it work. Absolutely, they want to make it work, the province and the feds, I get that, but to come in after and to supplement and to provide those additional revenues, not incomes, that's unheard of. So that's fantastic.
Well, you know, and you'll all be together at the opening and can give each other a hug. You know, and you know, they recognized, I mean, this is, I think, talented people in the bureaucracy of a lot of these funding organizations, realizing what their different organizations were going through in the struggle. So coming up with COVID cost supplements, coming up with things, you know, we fell into a usual category, which they didn't have, called fire. And they were in from the beginning, and their investment is only realized if we finish, if we complete. And, you know, Nova Scotia in particular, this benefits our region. So, okay.
One thing, 4.2 is not an easy number to strive toward. Just as a reference, the Ross Farm Museum Learning Center project was 4.2 as well.
Isn't that
Yeah, I
incredible?
know.
Yeah.
You had to
1.25.
spend more money to be the biggest.
No,
there you go.
no, they're all
No,
regional.
that's great.
They're all regional. They're all regional.
That's
projects.
great.
Yeah.
That's just great.
Andre?
Yeah.
I'll just say, I'm not gonna repeat everything everybody else said. But I think that it's, you know, this council recognizes the importance of arts in our community. You know, when you came with your original construction ask, it wasn't a very lengthy discussion that we had, even though we had to go outside of our policy to double our maximum contribution. So I think that speaks to the value that this council in particular places on arts. You know, obviously it has an importance in our community, not just for mental and physical health, but also all the economic benefits that come with it. So, you know, I'm looking forward to you guys opening, and then we'll see how the discussions go about how we can support you on an ongoing basis.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to thank you, and they say it takes a community to raise a child, and I think it took a community to get the fighters back on, so it's a great job, and I think you deserve a lot of credit for your volunteer time. You look at all those costs, I don't think they're showing on the budget, but they certainly have a huge impact on the budget, so personal thank you for that.
Counselor, there are two people that are really looking forward to this being over. Susan's husband and my wife.
Anyway, thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you for your support, and we'll see you very soon.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, let's do 6.1. Q3 updates.
Okay.
Morning.
Morning, council. Morning. Good morning. Thank you for your kind attention.
Don't hear a lot anymore.
What?
Don't hear quite a bit.
Well, you know, with a face like this. Undivided attention. Oh, no, I'm in trouble with that. But no, thank you for your time. This is just a regular quarterly update from infrastructure and operations. So if we could ask for the next slide. So we shall move gracefully into solid waste. So these are the tonnage that goes across the scale. It includes Q1, Q2, Q3, which is the latest. It's just interesting to note that year on year, comparison between the year 21 and 22 and the current financial year, we are 4,427 tons of waste across the scale higher than the previous year. So we are seeing an increase in the volumes that we're receiving across the board, across all subcategories of waste. The next slide, it basically just shows you a year-on-year increase. So it's gone from in 2018, 2019, 67,000 tons, and we're projected to receive around 83,000 tons for this year. So there's a significant uptick in the volume.
What do you think that is, man?
Well, there was a slight dip with COVID, and to be expected. There's been, I think, some concentration on people's expenditure on their homes and renovations.
That's what I was kind of figured that would be.
Yeah.
Has the per capita number increased though, or is it just is this a reflection of population growth?
The population, from memory, has grown 3% since the last census, but it has plateaued somewhat. So I'm not sure as to whether that's a contributing factor.
Yeah, because this is taking in all of them for $10 out.
Yeah. By the way, so, we've got a pretty hefty catchment area for it. So it's not just Chester in particular.
That makes it more clear. Yeah. Okay.
But I thought it was just an interesting visual just to see how things were progressing over the years. Leachate treatment. So the phase 2 design was approved by council, which we're grateful for. CDCL has commenced the work. They anticipate that the design will be presented back to us in March of this year. And then we're hoping to tender the construction work in April. So that's moving us at pace. Cell 3B, so the construction work continues. Unfortunately, this has been delayed simply because they couldn't get it all completed by their original completion date, which was Christmas of last year. This was in part of, this is entirely due to the fact that temperatures for the clay liner, they're unable to keep them at a temperature high enough for it to be malleable, to be used and to pass inspections. So they could do it at extreme cost to the municipality. But
Enormous rainstorms haven't helped.
No, and so it was, the decision was made to halt it until the weather does improve and the ambient temperatures are constantly above 5 degrees, I think. But that has sort of triggered some conversations in terms of, are we able to maintain, sort of taking waste in? The answer to that is yes, but it will be tight. We are hopeful for an early spring. We've had a mild winter so far, but that's no guarantee of a useful spring to us. We do have capacity to accept waste until July, which is the anticipated completion and opening of the new cell 3B. But we are running on fumes. I'm being brutally honest with you. The last resort would be to halt taking in waste from HRM. So that is sort of a slight valve. We don't anticipate the construction to go beyond July. We have monthly reports from the contractor to advise us, and so obviously we'll be relaying that information to council as during the course of the quarterly reports or as and when required. But we did have the Nova Scotia environment inspection completed and approved, so that's all good to note. So we've talked about the delays. Just again, I want to show this little graphic, and this is the average quarterly intake for the volumes. So Q1, it's about 19, which is April to June. Q2, July to September, slightly down, 18.8. October to December is 18.3. Then it does tail off to around 14, and they're the averages since 2018. So it's a bit of a sort of roller coaster. That also feeds into the fact that because we're in a slump and it does take a few weeks for it to ramp up to the full capacity. That means we're hopeful that the cells can accommodate the waste being brought to us before we're in full swing. Now on to some very good news, and I brought this. This technically should be in the next quarterly report, but I couldn't wait. So the compactor was delivered in January. So we got it. It was transported to site in 4 pieces. We had a chap came up from the States to help assemble it, and it is all functioning. It's working beautifully. The staff are thrilled with it. It's doing exactly as it says on the tin. And so there's a couple of very proud shots of the chaps at the landfill and the compactor in action. So we're very grateful for council support in getting this through in a very timely manner. And we're also very grateful to the landfill who allowed us to sort of skip ahead of them in the order for this. They said, okay, we can wait for a couple of months if Chester really need this, and that was very kind of them. So we do appreciate
Are staff noticing any improvement in compaction?
I think it's in week 2 of being fully operational. But it is equipped with sort of pretty sensitive GPS and sensing data. So once we've got that information, we'll do the comparison, and I'm happy to share that with you also. Okay. So that should be interesting to note that. Half-ton truck still awaiting delivery. Same as everybody else. Vehicles are on wait lists, and we're on that list. The EBC tower. So that's the snowblower, colloquially called. That the problems that they've suffered in the past has been resolved with the pump and the valve, so it's working quite functionally now. And again, there's been some sort of ongoing issues with the entrance gate, which are now being repaired, which is all good. Solid waste operator. So we've been fortunate that Tim at the Kaiser is a qualified wastewater operator, and he has been helping Garth down at with Public Works 2 days a week on mentoring Public Works staff, just as cover for the wastewater treatment plants within that we currently have across the municipality, which has been very useful, and it keeps Tim's skills up to speed as well with the general wastewater. And so we think that's a good use of his time. We did have one resignation, skilled labourer resigned, and we've posted that position. And so we're hoping to fill that very, very quickly. So we'll keep you posted on that as well. CFC removal conducted by the staff on site, so that continues, and all inspections and monitoring are ongoing and on schedule. The calendar, the waste collection calendar was completed and distributed to the residents prior to Christmas. And also the asbestos sampling for heavy equipment also passed the inspections and monitoring. Household hazardous waste training has been successfully completed by 2 staff. Confined space and rescue training has been successfully completed by 4 staff. And SWANA, which is the organising body for solid waste in Canada, in fact, North America. They had a conference in Halifax attended by 2 of the staff. So that's the Kaiser Meadows update. So if we move into Public Works, so just a quick overview of requests that we get. It's fairly standard across all of the years, so dwell on that too briefly. Active transportation, so it's the ICIP projects largely. So waiting first response from First Nations. Nova Scotia Power requests to relocate some of the power poles. So again, we're still waiting for a response for that. A workshop was conducted with the council, as you may recall, to discuss options to the increased construction costs. And we discussed that last week, so we're making progress there. We discussed on Tuesday of this week the rapid rectangular beacons and the speed radar signs with our quarterly report with our colleagues at Nova Scotia Department of Public Works. J-class roads, so we're anticipating a response from our submission for the upgrade of J-class roads at the end of March, so that's in keeping with other years. And once again, once we hear that, we shall let everyone know. So up until the end of December, we'd only mobilised for 2 significant snow events, which is unheard of. So it's my first winter in Nova Scotia, and I thought it'd be more wintry. So, well, I understand this is unusual.
This is a very mild winter.
I'm not complaining.
Now.
Well, I don't miss -45 and my eyes freezing. Lift station force mains, so the initial stages of design process is underway. Once we get those back, construction later on this year, date to be confirmed. Chester wastewater treatment plant, construction tender anticipated in May of this year, pending council approval, I should say. And we had a meeting on yesterday, in fact, Fred had a meeting, an update meeting regarding that. Otter Point wastewater treatment plant, so the design is ongoing. Final design is anticipated in Q1, so April, May of this year. Construction again this year, pending council approval. And we're also waiting for confirmation of whether we were successful in a Sustainable Communities Challenge Fund application. So that was for a total of $600,000. We did get notification yesterday that the announcements are delayed until the beginning of April. They had originally said we'd hear in February. So, it doesn't stop us with the progress of the design and the plans we have, but it would be nice to know if we got the cash.
Yeah, probably.
Well, we shall find out in due course. Wastewater treatment, Western Shore wastewater treatment plant upgrade, capital plan to be presented in Q1 of this year. The previous able designs are still applicable, and there's every likelihood that we should be able to reuse the UV system from the Chester wastewater treatment plant to, basically use equipment that is still functioning. Why buy new when we have equipment quite capable of doing the job? Milco fire protection, we're actually discussing that a little later on today, so that should be exciting.
Really interesting, yeah.
Yeah. The wastewater study workshop undertaken in December with council, which included the preliminary cost estimates. The Chester Basin design RFP distributed this month. The next steps, presentation of work schedule and pre-design estimates to council in April. We're hoping April. Gold River Bridge design was presented last week, I should say. So we're moving ahead with that option as instructed. And so again, once we've got those final designs and more detailed cost, we shall progress with construction hopefully in summer or fall of this year. Station Bridge, again, this was touched on Wednesday's meeting with Nova Scotia DPW, and we're basically looking at other alternatives to the bridge. We're seeing what we have, what's available to us that makes sense to everyone. No change on the Wild Rose, so work continues, and we are anticipating the opening of that to be in spring of this year, so no change there. The Parade Square gazebo lighting issue, which you may recall from later on last year, so that was adjusted, and we've not had any complaints, so hopefully that has been resolved. As a result of the audit, accessibility audit, council instructed us to look at options for potential siting or potential of a new building. So we've been moving on at some pace with that. We are creating a long list of locations that we feel would be suitable for discussion at council. So we'll be bringing those details back, our findings, recommendations, pros and cons for each of the sites, the criteria that we've used to make those selections, whether any of the existing municipally owned properties are appropriate, because we do own 122 separate sites, some larger than others, which was surprising to us as well. So we've done, we're embarking on a very thorough review of our current state, our future options, and we'll be bringing that to council for discussion. I put that in for the end of March, so if not before, so it's imminent. Second phase will be basically looking at, the building function, what each department is looking for in order to provide better customer service, accessibility, and all the rest of it. So again, that will follow later on in the year. We do intend on engaging the services of an options analysis specialist who does this for a living. Essentially, they've been engaged with Modal, who are neighbours next door, recently moved into a new building. Kings and also Argyle have enjoyed a new building, and based on their recommendations. So we shall present that when we have those. And again, we anticipate that coming back to Q2 of this year. 3/4 ton truck awaiting for delivery from supplier. I'd be shocked to hear. 0-turn mower, we delivery in April, so we do actually have a date for that, so it's in time for spring, which is good. Canopy and brush clearance complete on the trails, as was the surface upgrade and maintenance. Traffic impact study, so we should be bringing an RFD to council next week, and it is simply asking for the letter to be submitted to the Minister for Transport, asking for a date, hopefully, for when the provincial traffic calming policy will be adopted and sort of open for public view, so that we can move forward with our plans. Community wells, so the next step to there is to engage with the partners such as the Firehole Community Associations and Legions, and an RFP will be distributed or is distributed in February to conduct the test wells, predominantly around the Middle River area. Asset management policy, so that was approved in council in January, so thank you very much for that. We developed the evaluation criteria for the J-class road matrix. Asset management, so you may recall that we wanted to engage with Esri, who are the suppliers of the software for our GIS system, which is the industry standard. And we've now created three specific workflows for asset categories, and we'll be using, we'll be going for testing in real world life. We'll be giving it to our staff to use at the end of this month, end of March, sorry. So completed projects is the accessibility audit, the Harbourview Lane lot purchase, which again was completed earlier on this month, and tree canopy and brush removal, trail surface upgrade, Christmas tree adjustment, gazebo lighting, and then just our scorecard for Q3. So we completed 6 projects, so we are now down to 73. And that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone got any questions?
No.
You go get to.
Thank you. So we'll work from the slides backwards. First question is, just because it has Christmas tree in it, it piques my interest. So Christmas tree adjustment?
Yeah, Fred.
Yeah, just we had to put the large tree up there in Chester Base. I better run around with that. I figured it out.
Yeah, and then it blew down, that didn't help.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I didn't want to say that.
But it was good to go for Christmas. Yeah.
Okay, just piqued my interest. Thank you. And the next question is on the community wells slide. You said next steps to advise partners such as fire halls, community associations, legions, et cetera. So in terms of, for me, managing expectations, which is a big part of what we should do, are we talking sky's the limit? Are we talking one per district at this point? What were we talking about when we talked
I
about
got
that?
my understanding was in one position.
Right, so in terms of managing expectations,
Yes.
how's that gonna roll out? You're not reaching out to, for example, let's say, any of our districts, all the community associations, the legions, the fire departments, again, managing expectations. So what's a letter, what's that gonna be?
Yes, Fred.
That's the initial letter is currently under review.
Mhm.
The first one is strategy really is to cast a wide net, see who is interested, and then work from there. Right? What's the best option there?
Okay, so again, the understanding is one per district, but
We haven't
no,
met
that's,
Yeah, yeah.
it's okay, it's
And the
fine.
second one's not a bad option, but I want to see, once we get into it with the first couple prospective areas in each district, is that they're capable of producing that and so on, right? So it may be a bit of back and forth.
Okay,
I
that's
don't
fair.
think we made a decision. on one.
We haven't, but I think it was just a general.
That's right, it was a general discussion. And
We gotta see what comes back before we.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the letter is currently under review.
Who's interested, what is their current capacity and.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that letter will contain all that, so it may eliminate right away because it talks current capacity and so on. Next question, last question, is around the new building options and the fact that I appreciate receiving the long list, so a long list will be compiled and presented to council next month. And then you mentioned the number of properties that we have, 120 or something.
Yeah,
So are we talking in terms of options to potentially be located on properties that we own?
that was our first protocol. Do we have anything that we currently own? That makes absolute sense.
Okay.
So we applied filters to that. So we looked at the actual lot size,
Right.
where they were located, whether they're accessible or not.
Yeah.
We've applied criteria such as the population spread
Sure.
tends to be basically, not unsurprisingly, on Highway 3.
Yeah.
And so with all of these different types of filters, we're applying just to be transparent in why we're making recommendations that they are. And, basically inviting comments and discussion. So,
Perfect.
just to be clear though, we haven't made a decision, we're building the building. No.
We haven't made any, they're
Just to be
just
clear.
looking at the options.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no commitment at all. We're just going through the process to say these are potential options that the council may wish to consider.
Good, because I thought I might have missed a step.
No, we
Right.
haven't decided anything, they're just taking a look, this is what we need long term.
This is very high level, yes.
And, maybe we will look at partnerships,
It's possible.
could be a possibility.
Well, the rent is a possibility.
I mean, I know that
Well, the
maybe,
rent is, I think that when the time comes that we actually get to that stage, there's all kinds of things we'll look at.
Yeah, good point.
although I know the renter in a process of, fixing the roofing problem.
Oh, yeah,
So
I'm just saying it in a very general
In a
sense.
general sense, to spend that money if there could be a potential partnership,
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that this is, I know high level.
No, but I completely agree. Partnerships with all of those that may be interested, and we'll engage with them at the appropriate time.
Yeah, Derek,
There's two questions on the Outer Lake. If we have to stop taking waste from HRM, is there a contractual issue there that's covered in our contract?
we don't have.
There's no contract with
No contract.
HRM. Yeah, so they bring it as though URI would take it and just pay the rate over the scale. We're looking to formalise that in the coming months. because we're anticipating greater volumes, but as it currently stands, there's no contract.
If we had to stop taking it, what does that mean to them?
Not that much.
No, there's not, we have to. There's not a huge amount, it's not enormous volumes we're taking. Where they take it, I couldn't say at this point, maybe West Hands could be an option to them.
They take some to West Hands now, they sort of balance, I don't want to get into it too much, but they balance back and forth so that their options are always open.
Yeah.
Page 20, you talk about roads,
Mhm.
and you talk about sand and salt done as required. You're talking about sidewalks now?
Yes, roads, sidewalks, yes.
What roads do we sand and salt as a municipality?
Fred, which roads are those?
Yeah, we have, 4 in the Aspetuck and East River area, 2 in Elko. And our other road is contracted out, it's in Chester on Main Drive.
So we own those roads?
Yes.
Okay,
We own about 3 kilometers scattered.
okay.
The rest are dealt with by the province.
Yes, the rest are dealt with by the province, I understand. I hear about them, of course.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Yes, Joe.
Yeah, I just had a question on the open space, the trail service upgrade and maintenance. I just wanted to check with Chad while he's there. Has it been done to Martin's River? Do you know, Chad, yet?
Yes, the grading has been done the
It's been
entire
done.
way, and so we'll look at adding some new material to the trail surface starting in the spring.
Great, thanks. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you much.